I was the ugly sister, but the Alpha King ignored the beauty queen to claim me instead. The kingdom of Eloria was a place of cold stone walls, mist-laden forests, and legends whispered like secrets in the dark. Its people spoke of kings who wielded both fear and magic, of queens who could charm beasts and mortals alike, and of curses that lingered in the bloodline of every family. Among the noble families, the name of the House of Ravencourt carried weight, though it had fallen from grace in recent years. Lyra Ravencourt, the youngest daughter, moved silently through the grand halls of her family's estate. She was slight and plain by her sister Celine's standards, with soft brown hair, pale skin, and eyes that often looked like they were carrying someone else's sorrow. She had learned early on to fade into the background, to whisper when others spoke, to smile only when no one was looking. Celine, in contrast, was radiant. Every eye followed her as she moved, every courtier bowed a little lower, every merchant offered gifts. Celine's beauty was not just in her face, it was in the confidence that wrapped around her like a cloak. Lyra had long ago stopped trying to compete. Beauty, she knew, was a language she could never speak. It was during the Festival of the Silver Moon that the Alpha King arrived. Kael of Valor, ruler of the Northern Lands, was known to be merciless. Rumors of his power swirled through the kingdom. Some whispered that he could command storms, others that he could walk through fire without harm. To the people of Valoria, he was a king out of legend, a figure that could both protect and destroy with the same hand. The castle buzzed with excitement and fear. Selene, of course, prepared herself meticulously. She adorned her hair with silver threads, and her gown shimmered like the night sky. Lyra, meanwhile, wore a simple dark dress that her mother had made, one that matched the quiet shadows she had grown comfortable in. As the great doors opened, and Kael entered, the room fell silent. Even the musicians stopped their playing, as if afraid of breaking a spell. Every noble present tried to stand taller, to appear more perfect, to catch the king's gaze. Celine's heart thumped with anticipation. She was certain that Kael would see her, see the beauty that everyone else already had. But he didn't. Kael's eyes swept across the room, cold and calculating, and then like a lightning strike, they paused. Not on Selene, not on the other noblewomen who had spent months preparing to impress him, but on Lyra. Lyra froze, a strange heat rising to her cheeks. She felt as though someone had reached into her chest and touched something no one else had ever seen. Her heart raced, her breath caught, and she tried to look away. Kael's gaze held hers, unwavering, as if he could see through the layers of fear and doubt she had built around herself. Celine's smile faltered. Her hand, poised to wave in greeting, dropped slightly. She felt a cold sting in her chest that she couldn't name. For the first time, someone else was being noticed more than she was, and it was her plain, quiet sister. Kael's voice cut through the hush of the hall. "Lyra Ravencourt," he said, deep and commanding. "Come forward." The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in on her. Lyra's legs shook, but she obeyed, each step echoing against the marble floor. She felt all eyes on her, some in awe, some in confusion, and some in envy. Celine's eyes burned into her back, a mixture of disbelief and fury. When Lyra reached the center of the hall, Kael studied her. Not the gown, not the hair, not the shape of her face. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time Lyra felt something she had never experienced. Being seen, truly seen, as if all her smallness, all her fears, and all her secrets were finally understood. "Your name carries history," Kael said, his voice softening just enough to make her shiver. "Yet you walk like a shadow. Why do you hide, Lyra?" Lyra faltered. Her voice sounded small in the great hall. She had no answer. How could she explain a lifetime of hiding, a lifetime of being invisible? "Because shadows protect," Kael said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "But sometimes shadows are stronger than the brightest light. You are stronger than you know." The words were a spark that ignited something deep within her. She had never thought of herself as strong. Always plain, always quiet, always overlooked, yet somehow he saw it. Seleni's face had turned pale, and a ripple of whispers ran through the court. He didn't even notice me, Selena hissed under her breath, her voice sharp with anger. Cale's eyes briefly flicked toward Selene, then returned to Lyra. Beauty is fleeting, he said, his tone almost harsh. Power, courage, resilience, these endure. Lyra felt the weight of those words. She had spent so many years hiding her talents, her intelligence, even her heart, afraid that showing herself would only bring ridicule. And now, the king, the Alpha King, was recognizing her. As the festival continued, Cale stayed near Lyra. He asked her questions, subtle at first, about the court, the lands, and the magic rumored to linger in Valoria's forests. Lyra answered carefully, her curiosity growing. She had always loved the forests, had always felt something in the shadows that whispered to her. And Cale, he listened, really listened, as if her thoughts mattered. Selene, meanwhile, plotted quietly. Every smile she gave Lyra was forced, every word she spoke polite, but laced with venom. She could not understand why Cale ignored her, why her beauty, which had always commanded attention, had failed to captivate him. As night fell, the festival's lanterns glowed like fallen stars. Lyra found herself walking through the palace gardens, alone, thinking about the strange pull she felt toward Cale. The silver moon reflected in the fountain, and the night air was thick with magic and mystery. "You are brave to walk alone," a voice said from the shadows. Lyra turned, and there he was, Cale, standing as if he had been waiting for her. I like the night," Lyra said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "It feels safe." "Safe, yes," Cale said, stepping closer. "But safe is not where destiny waits. Sometimes it waits in danger, in darkness, in places you fear. And sometimes destiny chooses you whether you are ready or not." Lyra's heart thumped wildly. She did not understand him fully, and yet she trusted him. She did not know why she did. Perhaps it was the way he saw her, not as a shadow, but as someone who could shine. Perhaps it was the strange connection she felt, like two halves of a prophecy waiting to meet. "You speak in riddles," she said softly. Cale smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but riddles are the language of fate." Before Lyra could respond, a black raven descended from the trees, landing gracefully on the edge of the fountain. Its eyes gleamed silver in the moonlight, and it let out a sharp, piercing caw. Cale's eyes narrowed, and he glanced at Lyra with a mixture of warning and curiosity. "The omens are near," he murmured. "The kingdom watches. And so does danger. You are no longer merely Lyra Ravencourt. You are part of something far greater, whether you wish it or not." Lyra swallowed, a chill running down her spine. Her quiet life, the one where she had been unnoticed, was gone. Something had shifted, something powerful, something terrifying, and something thrilling. As they stood together in the moonlight, the raven cawed once more, its silver eyes reflecting the starlight. Lyra looked at Cale and realized that from this night forward she would never be the same. And she did not know if that terrified her more than it excited her. The festival would end with applause, music, and laughter. But in the quiet corners of the palace, the shadows whispered of prophecies, of power, and of a love that would change the kingdom forever. Lyra could feel it in her bones. The world had finally begun to notice her. "And the Alpha King," he had claimed her attention. The night wind stirred, carrying the scent of distant forests and ancient magic. Lyra's hand brushed against Cale's, a fleeting touch that sent a tremor through her chest. "Do you understand?" Cale asked softly. Lyra shook her head, her lips parting in a whisper. "Not yet." Cale's eyes softened, and yet held the sharp edge of command she could not ignore. "Then you will learn," he said. "And when you do, the world will never be the same again." The raven watched silently from the fountain, silver eyes gleaming, as if knowing, that the first thread of fate had just been tied, and for the first time Lyra did not wish to hide in the shadows. The first light of dawn spilled over the spires of Valoria's castle, painting the stone walls with pale gold. Lyra stood by the balcony of her chamber, the breeze tugging at her dark hair. The events of the festival still played in her mind like a dream she couldn't fully remember. She had never imagined that a king, an alpha king feared by all, would notice her. And yet, Cale had. Every word he had spoken, every glance he had cast replayed in her mind. He had seen her in a way no one ever had. And the thought both thrilled and terrified her. For the first time, Lyra wondered if her quiet, shadowed life could ever return. She knew it could not. "Lyra," a soft voice called from the doorway. She turned to see her sister Selene, radiant in a morning gown of shimmering silk. Her expression was carefully composed, but the edge in her eyes betrayed the storm beneath. "Selene," Lyra said cautiously. "I heard the whispers," Selene said, moving closer. Her voice was low, almost a hiss. "The king, he chose you." Lyra looked down. "I didn't choose him." Selene laughed, but it was bitter. "Do you think it matters who chooses who? The court sees. The world sees. And now, you walk in the light while I fade into shadow." Lyra wanted to reply, to say she didn't want this attention, but her sister's words stung. She had spent a lifetime avoiding the spotlight, and now the world seemed determined to shine on her. Lyra faltered. "I don't know what I am to him. I only know he looked at me like I mattered." Selene's eyes narrowed. "Then you better make him see that too. Don't let him be fooled by your plainness. You must learn to wield this attention, or it will destroy you." Lyra nodded slowly, though a part of her wished to hide again. That evening, Cale requested Lyra's presence in the palace library, a room that smelled of old parchment and candle wax, lined with shelves that reached the ceiling. It was said to hold the kingdom's oldest secrets, books and scrolls that whispered of magic, prophecy, and power. "Sit," Kyle said, motioning to a high-backed chair. He studied her with intensity. "You have strength, Lyra. I can feel it. But strength alone is not enough. The world will try to shape you into what it wants, not what you are." Lyra swallowed. "I don't know what I am capable of." "Then we will find out," Cale said. He reached for a small crystal vial on the table. Inside, a swirling silver mist glimmered faintly. "This is called the Veil of Truth. It does not lie. It shows your heart, your fears, and the power you hide even from yourself." Lyra hesitated. The stories she had heard about magic in Valoria were full of danger. People who touched forbidden magic often disappeared, or worse. But Cale's eyes were steady, calm, as if he were telling her a secret that could save her life. "I trust you," she whispered. Cale's lips curved faintly, and he handed her the vial. Lyra took it in trembling hands. The moment the silver mist touched her skin, a warmth spread through her chest. She felt a flicker of light inside her, tiny and uncertain at first, then growing brighter. Images flashed in her mind, forests that whispered her name, shadows that shifted to reveal hidden paths, and a power within her she had never dared to imagine. "It is strong," Cale said quietly. "Stronger than I expected. The prophecy, it spoke of one hidden in shadow, who would rise to challenge darkness. That one is you." Lyra's hand shook. "Prophecy? Me? Yes. But prophecy is only a thread," Cale said. "You must weave it with your choices, your courage, and your heart." The weight of his words pressed on her. She had always been invisible, overlooked, underestimated. And now, the entire kingdom, perhaps even the world, depended on her strength. And yet, Cale believed in her. That belief lit a fire inside her chest that no fear could extinguish. Days passed, and Lyra found herself drawn into Cale's world of politics, strategy, and secrets. She learned to read maps of land she had only seen from castle windows, to understand the alliances and threats that threatened Valoria, and to notice the subtle movements of power in every conversation. Kale's tutelage was patient but firm, and his presence was both comforting and unsettling. One afternoon he led her into the royal gardens, where night-blooming flowers exhaled the scent of jasmine in moonlight. "Your power is growing," he said, watching her as she reached for a flower. "But you must learn control. Strength without control is dangerous." Lyra inhaled deeply, the scent filling her senses.
"I want to learn, but I am afraid."
"What if I fail?" Kale stepped closer, so close that she could feel the warmth of his presence. "Then I will not let you fail alone." But fear is natural. Courage is acting despite fear. Do you understand? Her pulse quickening, she wanted to reach for him, to take comfort in his strength. But she was also aware of the fragile boundaries between them, the unspoken tension that thrummed in the air like a living thing. Selene, meanwhile, had grown restless. She watched Lyra's lessons with Kale from the shadows, her envy simmering like embers ready to ignite. Every glance Kale gave Lyra was a dagger in Selene's pride, every word a reminder that she, the beautiful sister, had been ignored. One evening Selene confronted Lyra in the quiet corridors of the palace. "Do you know what you are doing?" Selene hissed. "The king does not choose the weak lightly. If you fail, everything falls." Lyra met her sister's eyes, steady despite the fear rising in her chest. "I don't plan to fail." Selene laughed, sharp and bitter. "You don't even understand what you're involved in. Magic, power, prophecy. These are not toys. One wrong step, and not only you, but the kingdom itself will suffer." Lyra clenched her fists. "I am ready to try. More ready than you will ever understand." Selene's eyes narrowed, and she turned away, leaving Lyra with a sense of foreboding. The road ahead would not be easy, and the jealousy of her sister would be a shadow that followed her. That night, Kale found Lyra in the palace courtyard, standing under the silver moon. The wind lifted her hair around her face, and she looked like a creature born from the shadows themselves. "You are restless," he said softly, stepping beside her. "I feel something stirring," Lyra admitted. "Power, maybe, or fear. I do not know which is stronger." Kyle reached for her hand, and the contact sent a shiver through her. "Both are strong," he said. "But power is only dangerous if you run from it. Face it. Embrace it. Learn from it." Lyra looked up at him, her heart pounding. "I do not know if I am ready." "You are," Kale said firmly. "Not because I say so. Not because the prophecy says so, but because you have chosen to stand here, in the night, with the courage to face what others would flee from. That is all it takes to begin." A sudden movement in the shadows caught Lyra's eye. A black raven, with eyes that gleamed silver, landed silently on a stone bench. Its gaze seemed almost human, piercing and intelligent. Kale's eyes followed the bird, narrowing. "The omens are still watching," he murmured. "The world does not forget. Danger will come, and you must be ready. But tonight, you have begun to awaken." Lyra's chest tightened, a mixture of excitement and fear. The night was alive, whispering secrets she had never known. And Kale's presence, commanding yet gentle, made her feel that she could face whatever lay ahead. "Will you teach me more?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale smiled faintly.
"Yes."
"But it will not be easy. You will be tested, by magic, by people, by your own fears. And you will fail sometimes. But every failure will teach you. Every shadow will guide you." Lyra nodded, determination rising within her. She had spent her life in shadows, and now she would learn to walk in the light, and even in the dark. Kale's gaze softened as he looked at her. "Do not forget this, Lyra! You are no longer the girl who hides in the background. You are becoming someone the world will remember, and perhaps someone even I cannot forget." Lyra's breath caught. The tension between them was sharp, almost tangible. She did not know if it was fear, admiration, or something deeper that pulled at her heart. but she felt it in every pulse of her body. The raven cawed once more, then took flight, vanishing into the night. Its silver eyes had seemed to carry a warning, or perhaps a promise. Lyra did not know which, but she felt its message deep in her bones. The path ahead would be dangerous, filled with fire and shadow, and she would never walk it alone. The castle of Bellaroya was quieter now than it had been during the festival, but silence often hid danger. The halls, lined with towering tapestries depicting battles long past, seemed to whisper secrets to those who would listen. Lyra walked carefully, her mind still buzzing from the lessons Cale had given her in the library and the gardens. She could feel a change within herself, an awakening that was thrilling and terrifying all at once. Yet not all eyes were pleased with this transformation. Selene watched her from across the room during breakfast, her hands wrapped tightly around her teacup. Every glance Cale gave Lyra was like a dagger to her pride. She had always believed that beauty commanded attention, and now, to her dismay, Lyra's quiet strength drew Cale in a way she could not. Selene had begun to plan. She had not grown accustomed to being second, and she would not accept that her sister, the Plain One, could rise above her. She reached out to whispers and shadows, to courtiers who resented Cale's rule, and even to a sorcerer rumored to practice forbidden magic in the far northern forests. She would reclaim the spotlight. She would reclaim what she believed was hers. Meanwhile, Cale summoned Lyra to the council chamber. The room smelled of polished wood and old parchment, and sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting long, golden beams across the floor. Several advisors and nobles were gathered, their faces serious, their eyes flicking to Lyra with curiosity and perhaps a little envy. "You are ready for this," Cale said quietly as Lyra approached. "It is time you understand not just your power, but your place in the kingdom. Your mind is as important as your strength." Every moment with Cale was a mixture of awe and fear. His presence was commanding, yet he treated her with a care that few had ever shown her. She wanted to impress him, to prove that she was more than invisible, more than a shadow in her sister's light. The council meeting began. Maps were spread across the table, and Cale spoke of the northern borders where raids and unrest were growing. Lyra listened closely, absorbing every detail. Cale asked her questions, probing her understanding, guiding her to think strategically. "You see," he said, "a kingdom is like a web. Every action has a ripple. Every choice has a consequence. You cannot hide from it, Lyra. You must act, even when the path is unclear." Lyra nodded. "I understand. I will try." Kyle's eyes softened. "Trying is the first step to mastery. You must trust yourself." As the council dispersed, Selene lingered near the exit. Her eyes were cold, sharp, with envy. She approached Lyra with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You are learning quickly," Selene said, her voice smooth and measured. Perhaps too quickly for someone who has lived in shadows all her life. Lyra met her sister's gaze steadily. "I am not afraid of the shadows. They taught me patience, observation, and courage. You may not see it, but I am ready."
Selene's lips pressed into a thin line.
"We shall see." That night, Cale invited Lyra to the northern forests, where the first test of her power awaited. The moon hung low, a silver eye in the sky, illuminating the twisted trees and dark paths. Lyra felt the familiar stirring within her, the pulse of magic that had begun to grow stronger with every lesson. "Tonight, you will face a challenge," Cale said, his voice calm but serious. "You must confront not only what lies in the forest, but also what lies within yourself." Lyra swallowed, nerves coiling in her stomach. She had trained, she had learned, but the unknown still terrified her. Cale's hand brushed against hers, a small reassurance. "You are not alone," he said softly. They moved through the forest, the leaves whispering beneath their feet. Suddenly, shadows shifted, and a figure appeared. A dark sorcerer cloaked in black, eyes gleaming with malice. "Cale," the sorcerer said, voice sharp like ice, "and the hidden sister." I wondered when you would emerge. Lyra stepped forward, heart pounding, feeling the fire of courage rise inside her. I am not hiding anymore, she said, her voice firm. I will not step back. Kale moved to stand beside her. Remember what I taught you, he said. Control your power. Focus your will. The sorcerer raised his hand, sending a wave of dark energy toward Lyra. Without thinking, she raised her hands instinctively, and a silver light burst forth, forming a protective shield around her. The energy crackled and the forest trembled. Kale watched, his eyes narrowed in concentration. Good, he said. Now focus. Make it yours. Lyra closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She felt the pulse of her power, the magic that had been growing inside her, and she let it flow. The dark energy recoiled, unable to break through her barrier. She opened her eyes, and a wave of light surged forward, striking the sorcerer and forcing him to retreat. The forest fell silent. Lyra's chest heaved, and she realized she was trembling not from fear, but from exhilaration. She had faced danger and emerged victorious. Kael stepped closer, his hand brushing hers again. You did well, he said, pride in his voice. You have begun to understand the strength within you. But this is only the beginning.
Lyra looked up at him, her heart racing.
It felt powerful. I felt like I belonged.
You do, Kael said, more than you realize.
And soon, the kingdom will see it too. Back in the castle, Selene had learned of the encounter. Her envy and anger boiled over. She would not accept being second to Lyra. That night, she secretly left the castle, seeking the dark sorcerer in the northern forests, offering him a pact she had kept hidden in her heart, her own ambition in exchange for his aid. Lyra did not know of this betrayal, but tension hung in the air. Every whispered rumor, every shadow in the corridors seemed sharper, darker. The palace, once a place of careful routine, felt like a stage for secrets and schemes. Kael took Lyra to the palace garden once more, under the pale glow of the moon. The air smelled of night-blooming flowers, the same scent as the first time they had walked here together. You are changing, Kael said softly. The power you wield now, it is not just magic. It is your courage, your heart, your mind. You are becoming someone who can shape the world. Lyra's gaze fell to the flowers at her feet. I am afraid, she admitted. Afraid of failing, of not being enough, of losing you. Kael's hand lifted to her chin, tilting her face so that she met his gaze. Fear is natural. Love, longing, these make you human. But they will not make you weak. They will make you strong, if you let them. Lyra's heart thudded. She had never felt such an intense mix of fear, admiration, and longing. She wanted to reach for him, to close the distance between them, but she held back. She knew the delicate balance of their bond, and she was not ready to upset it. You are ready, Kael said, sensing her hesitation. Not for the world.
But for yourself?
The following days were filled with training, study, and preparation. Lyra's power grew stronger. Her confidence blossomed, and Kael's guidance remained steady. Yet the shadow of Selene's jealousy loomed ever closer. One afternoon, Lyra discovered signs of Selene's plotting. Strange symbols etched into the stone corridors, messages whispered by servants, hints of alliances forming in secret. Lyra confronted Kael. She is planning something, Lyra said, her voice tense. I do not know what, but it is dangerous. I feared as much. Selene's envy is more than pride. It can be a weapon. We must be ready.
Lyra's chest tightened.
I thought the hardest battle was learning my power. But now it seems the hardest battle will be keeping those I care for safe from those I cannot control. Aiel's hand found hers again. You will not face it alone. Together, we are stronger. Trust in yourself and trust in us. Lyra nodded, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the fire of courage. She would face whatever came next, Selene, the sorcerer, or the shadows of the kingdom itself. She was no longer invisible. She was a force in her own right. The dawn rose over Valoria, golden and cold, as though the kingdom itself was holding its breath. The castle walls, tall and silent, seemed heavier than ever, weighed down by the secrets and shadows that had gathered within. Lyra stood at the edge of the balcony, the wind tugging at her hair, the chill pressing against her skin. Today would change everything. She could feel it in the pulse of the air, in the whispers of the trees, and in the distant mountains where dark magic lingered. Celine's betrayal had grown bolder. The dark sorcerer from the northern forests had answered her call, bringing with him threats that could shake the kingdom to its foundations. Lyra had learned of it only yesterday, piecing together fragments of secret meetings, whispered warnings, and signs she had been taught to read by Kale. Now, she understood the full weight of what was to come. Kale approached her quietly. His presence, as always, brought both comfort and tension. His dark eyes held shadows of concern, tempered by the calm strength that had drawn her to him from the first moment. "The northern forests are restless," he said softly, his hand brushing hers. "The sorcerer is gathering forces. Celine, she has chosen a path from which there may be no return." Lyra's jaw tightened.
I do not know if I am ready.
Kael's grip on her hand was firm but gentle.
You are. Not because I say so, but because you have grown.
Every step, every choice, every fear you faced, it has brought you here.
And I will not let you face it alone.
The tension between them was thick, unspoken, like a thread stretched taut. Lyra wanted to lean into him, to seek comfort in the strength she had come to trust, but she held herself back. She knew this battle was hers as much as it was theirs together. The castle gates opened to the northern forests, and Lyra rode alongside Kale, the wind whipping her hair and the earth below trembling under the horses' hooves. The forest was alive with a low, humming energy, the magic that had been dormant for centuries now stirring in anticipation of confrontation. Shadows danced along the tree trunks as though the forest itself were watching, waiting to see which side would falter first. "This is it," Kale said quietly. "The final test, not only of your power, but of your heart. What you do here will echo through the kingdom for years to come." Her magic thrummed through her veins, responding to the forest, to her emotions, to the presence of Kale beside her. She realized that the fire within her was not just strength. It was courage, love, and the will to protect everything she cared for. As they moved deeper into the forest, a dark figure emerged from the trees. Celine, radiant even in shadows, stood with the sorcerer, her eyes burning with determination and envy. "Lyra," Celine called, voice echoing through the trees, "you have learned your tricks, but power alone will not save you. The kingdom belongs to me." Lyra's heart ached, but she did not falter. "The kingdom belongs to those who protect it," she said, her voice steady. "And I will not let you destroy what we hold dear." Kale's hand found hers, a silent reminder of strength and partnership.
"Remember your training," he said. "Trust yourself.
Trust the magic within you." The sorcerer raised his hands, dark energy swirling like storm clouds. Lyra felt the pull of fear, sharp and cold, but she focused on the silver light she had learned to wield. It rose around her like a shield, shimmering and alive, responding to her heartbeat, her courage, and the love that had grown for Kale. The forest erupted in a clash of power. Lyra's light met the sorcerer's darkness, sparks flying like falling stars. The trees shuddered, and the ground beneath their feet trembled as if the forest itself were caught in the battle. Kale moved with precision, striking with both power and strategy, ensuring Lyra remained protected while encouraging her to control her own magic. "You are stronger than you know," he said during a pause in the fight. "Channel your fear, your anger, and your hope. Make them one." Lyra closed her eyes, drawing in the energy around her. She thought of her family, the people of the kingdom, the life she had once hidden from, and the love she felt for Kael. She let it flow through her, merging with her magic. And when she opened her eyes, the silver light surged like a tidal wave, forcing the sorcerer and Celine to stumble backward. Celine's face twisted in shock and fear. Lyra, no, she whispered, realizing that the quiet sister she had once overlooked had become someone formidable, radiant even in shadow. The sorcerer roared, his magic faltering under Lyra's growing strength. With a final surge, Lyra focused her energy, sending a wave that shattered the sorcerer's dark aura. He fell back, defeated, disappearing into the shadows of the northern forest, leaving Celine trembling at his side. Cale moved forward, lifting Lyra's hand. "You did it," he said, pride and relief mixing in his tone. "You faced what others feared and you prevailed." She had done it. She had faced her greatest fear, wielded her magic and confronted her sister without faltering. And yet, her heart ached for Celine, who now looked lost and broken beneath the weight of her own envy. Days later, Veloria began to heal. The castle, once tense and shadowed, felt lighter. The court whispered of Lyra's bravery, of her strength, and of the quiet power that had always been there, waiting to awaken. Celine, meanwhile, withdrew into solitude. She no longer plotted openly, but the lessons of humility had begun to take root, however reluctantly. Lyra had spared her, offering a hand of understanding instead of punishment, showing that strength could be tempered with compassion. Cale and Lyra spent long hours walking the castle gardens, studying magic, and preparing for the responsibilities that now awaited them. Each day their bond deepened, not only in admiration but in quiet, unspoken love. Cale's presence was a steadying force, and Lyra's courage and wisdom balanced his strength. Together they were a partnership that had been forged through trial, trust, and shared destiny. One evening they stood at the highest balcony of the castle, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky blazed with colors that mirrored the fire in their hearts. "You have grown beyond what I imagined," Cale said softly. "You are no longer the girl who hid in shadows. You are light and strength, courage and wisdom, and the heart of this kingdom." Lyra felt her chest tighten, her emotions raw and full.
"I could not have done it without you,"
she admitted.
"You saw me when no one else did."
"You taught me to believe in myself." Cale's gaze softened, but held the weight of command that had always drawn her to him. "And now, Lyra, we must walk forward together. The kingdom has been saved from immediate danger, but shadows linger. There will be challenges, temptations, and threats, but together we can face them all." Lyra nodded, feeling both fear and excitement. She had faced darkness and emerged stronger. She had faced betrayal and endured. And she had found love, not in flash or glamour, but in quiet understanding, trust, and shared courage. As the last rays of sunlight faded, the wind carried a whisper through the castle halls. It was a reminder that the world was full of magic, mystery, and unseen forces, but Lyra no longer feared them. She had found her place, her power, and her heart. Cale took her hand, holding it firmly. "Are you ready to walk with me?" he asked, his voice soft but certain. Lyra looked into his eyes, feeling the depth of his trust, his care, and his love. She smiled, the first true smile she had ever given without hesitation or doubt. "Yes," she said. "I am ready." The kingdom watched quietly as the two figures stood together on the balcony. Two souls forged in shadow and fire, united in courage, love, and destiny. And in that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, recognizing that the bond between Lyra and Cale would shape not only the kingdom, but the future of Veloria itself. The night fell, cool and clear, and the stars appeared above like silver witnesses to the promise of what was to come. Lyra and Cale stood together, hand in hand, ready to face the future, whether shadowed or bright. The kingdom would remember the quiet sister who became a light, the Alpha King who saw her, and the love and courage that had saved them all.